Hope this is going to work now. Awesome. Whew, hope you all are doing well. It's already been a pretty busy week to say the least. And of course, we had our favorite thing go out that we've been waiting on for quite a bit, which was the Grapes TGE. I just woke up like 10 minutes ago. So I'll be really honest. I haven't seen all of the elements, but I quickly did see that the price was doing generally well. I am curious to understand where it's going to go long term. Uh, so what's it sitting at? 13 cents a piece. That's a FDV of 264 million is what I'm looking at right now. So not awful, but not a smashing success either. Right now, that puts it at roughly a 6x on the initial FDV. I remember something like that, 6.5x. That's solid, right? Which is pretty great to see at the moment right now. But yeah, went to 10x down to roughly 6x here at the moment right now. But yeah, just kind of showing here again, like, this is at least doesn't ruin the run that we're making with TGEs right now, but it's also at the same thing at the moment right now that, hey, this is just showcasing you a signal that could have been better. There could have been more liquidity. There's probably more liquidity that people probably potentially expected, but at least it's doing well. Just curious, how well has that flowed back into NFTs today? I'm going to just quickly check Blur at the moment right now and just check the collection scores. There's some decent 1 day swings on everything except grapes and moonbirds. Dumping hard. Oh, Creep's also dumping hard today, but not that much flowing in on the bigger stuff. Ooh, Mataria looked like it picked up quite a bit. Poglin picked up about 5%. Interesting. So, not everything coming around the corner, but again, just it is showcasing you that this could have been significantly better. Bruno says grapes weak as fuck. 6x from pre-sale ain't shit. I agree. 6x is way, way on the lower end of what this should be. Don't get me wrong. Congrats if you're able to be part of that grapes play. I am curious based off what the grapes users received per grape on this drop. I'm curious what that math backed out to. But yeah, it is surprising. DJ Rupture says no major exchange is the reason. Yeah, this is really surprising that they go to Binance Smart Chain with this play and they don't have Binance directly as a part of this, which is also pretty intriguing. So again, long story short, we always are keeping an eye out on this front. We are recognizing here that, okay, this market is giving us a very clear understanding that there's still liquidity, but again, execution really, really matters. So I'm curious to see long term how this plays out. I'm also curious how well their token holds up. I think one of the biggest challenge here as well is going to be, really, really all about scaling up. I think this is where this market's going to go, and we're going to see a little bit more still intrigue and excitement. Of course, Overworld is probably going to be now leading this narrative from here. Overworld has their baseline, but really Overworld's trying to hit 1 billion FDV or bust, right? Like, and I think that's kind of now going to be really interesting is that, if Overworld doesn't hit 1 billion FDV, it would probably be a pretty large disappointment with their leverage. And I said that if grapes didn't realistically hit like a 500 million FDV, it would be a disappointment. And I think we're kind of running into that as well. So, again, this means that how you execute to the TGE is going to be really important. But we don't want to talk too much about that today. It was just relevant, of course, because it just happened overnight. It's going to be really intriguing to see where the rest of this market goes. I'm curious just how does Incarna look at the moment right now? Just curious if any of that kind of played over. No, Encarna dumping. Encarna's at 2.5 instead, down 8%. That's actually really interesting. So, like, a lot of people were betting a lot of that liquidity was going to flow into Encarnas here, which is kind of unique. Yeah, I know there's these blur listings here at the moment right now. I actually just got a message that people can now sell on Blur without royalties, which is crazy. It means that Blur updated their Seaport, updated the custom code and how they interact with Seaport to now be able to pull ERC 721C, right? Like it's kind of very intriguing to kind of see this playbook and where it's going to go. But yeah, I think ICOB says Jeremy didn't understand that blocking Seaport was the problem. You need a contract to trade on. Very interesting too. This is like another battle. I'm curious, has Gabe tweeted about this? Has Gabe when did Gabe go aggressively hard on it is pretty funny to watch Gabe Layden yell um at Blur, considering that he also shares a very large similar investor in Paradigm. Um he's hilariously Gabe is talking more about Kevin Rose. Moving forward, if creators want current royalties, it's going to be critical to use ERTC and to block all exchanges that use OpenSea support. Creators must block OpenSea, Blur, X2Y2. Seaport is broken. Be safe out there. Got it. So that's what he was highlighting here. Jeremy says royalties are the foundation of Web3. All royalties earned by Overworld directly go into enhancing the product and community experiences. Long live ERC 721C. So it looks like, yeah, it looks like Jeremy just implemented 721C, but did not do the block. Got it. On this kind of thing. So I'm actually very curious to see then how this battle kind of forms because, like it is very interesting to see how Jeremy will make this a part of his argumentation. But to be very honest, this is all just a distraction to the bigger thing. And the bigger thing is only one thing, TGE, token, token, token. So I am going to be curious to see how that language and the insights are going to matter. Because, to be very honest, the way that Jeremy is probably using ERC 721C isn't going to be that interesting outside of the fact that I guess he's going to do a little bit of creator royalty share back. I don't think that's going to be a huge number. It's a good story. So I'm curious to see like what his reaction is going to be, but also more importantly, I'm way more curious to see if the market cares about any of this, right? Like, what should be the solution long term for this kind of stuff, because again it is shows you like marketplaces aren't really on your side in a lot of ways, right? Like this is a pretty bold move from Blur, and I'm pretty sure it's because they've probably been antagonized enough by Gabe. They're just like, you know what, if they don't block us, let's just keep fucking with their contracts. Like it does feel like that kind of play, because it is pretty hilarious for them to do, because there's only like two contracts that are getting 721C. But the hilarious thing is, right, one of those contracts was the most royalties paid out over the last 1 to 2 weeks. And then boom, it all just went downhill here on this front. So really fascinating stuff. Well, there's of course a lot of stuff happening in Web3. We'll even have more conversations about this tomorrow as we talk through it. But what I'm really excited now about is giving you guys a little bit of insight on what we're doing here in the wonderful world of Ronin. So, if you haven't been paying attention, one of the things that we have found very compelling at the world of Tribe is recognizing, like this market around ETH is incredibly strong. There may be a huge opportunity for other chains to develop. And one of those chains that we're incredibly excited about is what Bitcoin and more importantly, the Ordinals protocol is unlocking for that side of the chain and the liquidity opportunity there. And ordinals has been something we've been following along for a while. We've held multiple AMAs with projects on that front, but also it's been really fascinating to kind of understand how can we play a role. So Tribe, a few months back, kind of started to set forth on what would a standalone ordinals collection look like, and more importantly, what is a way that we could uniquely design a path on that front. So we've actually done a lot of work already at Tribe to get Ronin ready for launch. We've started to build, an entire new IP with creative and art that is essentially ready to go. There's a little bit of custom curation left. We've done a little bit of extra work of getting, certain vintage sats pretty early. That was probably more advantageous early on in this process to have those vintage sats. Those vintage sats are now like more accessible now, but still meaningful for our story. So not something to ignore, but definitely that's something that has shifted. But we also started to figure out, okay, what would be really interesting ways to inscribe and leverage the ordinals protocol that is true to the kind of the Bitcoin maxis or the Bitcoin users as well, which I think was going to be really interesting as the way this market interacts with ordinals still is very fresh. There's still a lot of room for narrative and a lot of room for opportunity. And when we kind of look and zoom out and try to understand the rest of the ordinals market, there's been a lot of good signals on ordinals. I think historically, one of the collections that has always performed really well and has probably been the pillar has been Ordinal Maxi Biz or OMB. They have consistently built the right narrative, loyalty, and relationship to kind of sustain incredibly healthy floor prices in this market. Currently, they have a 2,000 collection size sitting at, let me see before I just make up numbers because I know this has been changing quite a bit. Let's go look at the floor. It is currently sitting at a 0.58 BTC floor. If you're not familiar with that, holy fuck, that's almost 11 ETH floor. If my math is correct, hold on. To Jesus, that is correct. Holy cow! I sometimes forget like how much Bitcoin is now worth now. Like I've actually kind of forgotten how much it's shot it up. It's actually mind-boggling at this point, right? And that's kind of like ridiculous, right? So when we're looking at how this market is now working, you're seeing a 2,000 collection holding an 11th floor, and within OMB, there's even a rarer collection. It's based off the color of eyes. There's blue eyes and red eyes, and that floor is probably 2x, 3x higher than that at the moment right now. Actually, probably significantly much more higher than that as well, which is quite crazy. Let me see if I could see any last recorded sales of blue eyes or red eyes here. Where could I see the activity of sales? Here it is. Let's see when's the last blue eye or red eye sold. Oh wow, they've been selling for it looks like 2.1 BTC was the last sale. So 2.1 BTC. Let's just see what that is into ETH at the moment right now. So it's only a cool 40 ETH floor for the blue eye red eye collection. Again, very very small amount of a supply there, but holy shit, right? Very interesting metrics, right? And I think that's kind of a very compelling thing to understand is that they've been building this outlier. But as OMB continues to build, there's also a crazy, crazy larger outlier in the ordinals market, and that has effectively been this project that is a 10,000 supply, and it's just been continually climbing up, and that is Bitcoin frogs. Bitcoin frogs were incredibly accessible to mint. There's a large accumulation opportunity for a long time, and now they're sitting at a 0.37 BTC. Again, let's now do that into ETH again for you guys to recognize. This is a 10,000 collection on ordinals that is currently sitting at an equivalent 7.21 ETH in this market, right? Crazy. A 10K collection is sitting at over 7 ETH floor right now, equivalent on BTC. And it was even higher just a few days ago. It was almost at 10 BTC, right? Which is also just incredibly nuts. When was the last time you've seen a 10 ETH floor 10K collection launch on ETH? That shit actually doesn't exist. It actually doesn't exist, right? Like the closest we probably had this year was Captains, kind of got to that number, but at the same time, it couldn't even sustain with a token, yet it's working on ordinals. What's going on? And it's very interesting. Very few people are kind of recognizing, this project has been able to get to these levels, and a 10K at 7.2 ETH, right? Like there's very few equivalencies here. So that's like the really good side about ordinal. But let's also talk about the other reality about ordinal. There's a lot of duds, right? There's a lot of misses on ordinals. It's very interesting. It's a very polarizing outcome. You either win or you get completely forgotten. And that's the other interesting thing, is that the volume is still generally fairly low on ordinals if you're looking purely at ordinal like digital assets that are being traded. Right now, when you look at some of those marketplace volumes, they might show ordinals really high, but it's actually what's really driving that volume is the BRC, their equivalent of tokens, right? ERC version on that ecosystem as well. So this is kind of where it gets really exciting. Is like, wow, there's an aggregation of whales here that is happening. I mean, we're looking at pretty insane stuff. OMB with a 10 ETH, floor supply. 1011 ETH floor with just a 2000 supply. You're seeing Bitcoin frogs at a 7 ETH floor on a 10,000 supply. So we see the outliers, right? But at the same time, there's been major guys who come over from ETH that have kind of had duds. A good example of this is On-Chain Monkey. On-Chain Monkey has had a lot of interest around what they're doing. And they actually tried to do one of the hardest things, which is teleburning. So they are burning their ETH collection over into ordinals at the moment right now. And to be honest, it hasn't been going great. And their asset actually ended up losing a lot of floor price when the teleburn went live, because the truth was there wasn't enough liquidity on the other side. The crazy thing is that when I tell you guys about a 10K collection like Bitcoin frogs, right, doing a point 37 BTC floor or a 7 ETH equivalent floor, what a lot of people don't realize is that although that's an amazing number, what's kind of surprising is the volume they're doing is surprisingly low, right? So in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin Frogs has done 6.5 BTC in volume, right? So what's 6.5 BTC roughly into ETH? That's roughly 127 ETH of volume in the last 24 hours, right? This is a 10K collection with which a 7 ETH floor, but it only did 120 ETH of volume, right? When we look at the equivalency there of 120 ETH in volume, the crazy thing is that's what tons of collections may do in a single day on the ETH front, right? A good example of this, in the last 24 hours, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different collections on the ETH front that have done more than that in daily volume. And there's been many that do multiples of that on daily volume, right? Azuki doing 1400 ETH in daily volume in the last 24 hours. Mutant doing almost 1,000. Pudgy's doing almost 800. So what you're seeing is that although there's really high floors, right? The challenge here is that the liquidity, yeah, it really isn't there, and more importantly, it's significantly less buying power that is being visualized, but the holding power is incredibly strong. So this is where it's interesting. We're seeing the pros and cons of this ecosystem still coming up, right? There's still some technical challenges to an extent, as there's some updates happening on certain elements of the protocols. There's a few things coming up like runes that could be a better way of being able to do token distribution. There's also challenges where inscription costs are incredibly high, as many people are flocking over to the ordinals ecosystem even more. It is pretty unique to see where that is playing out. So then the question that we should all be asking is, how do we want Tribe to play a part of that? And really the way we think we want to play a part of that is that we want to kind of help scale out that ecosystem with true loyal users. And this is exactly why we built Ronin, is that Ronin is aiming to tell a very deep story around what like the history of BTC and Bitcoin is. But also I think what we're really excited about doing is try to push some of the art elements and storytelling elements a lot further. So, for those of you who already know about Rodin, some of this may be a quick recap, and then I'll kind of let you guys know how this is going to play out from a timeline process, as at the moment, all the power is currently in the hands of our diamond users, and we'll talk about why that's the case. So, in regard to where Rodin is, we've been having a lot of fun because we feel we've landed on art that's really powerful. We're really excited about the Rodin art that we initially created that still leverages our classic style of of pixel art as well. We also think pixel art is amazing to bring over to ordinals because it has a lot of optimizations of the art to create a lot more digital fidelity of what we're bringing over. One of the biggest problems actually at the moment right now is realizing the fidelity of the art isn't really great on really any of the stuff happening on ordinals because of the inscription costs, right? But even that, it's also was this race. Like, no offense, I don't think there's anything wrong with Bitcoin frogs, but also at the same time, could you tell the difference between this collection and any hold on. Let me drop this in chat real quick. Look at this collection here. And if you look at this art, does this scream 7 ETH when you see this as a floor? Probably not. Like it's kind of interesting. It what you're seeing is this honestly looks like a collection that we might have seen quickly kicked out for an ETH or Soul based project. Exactly. Rain says it screams the 2021 Solana rugs here as well. So it's kind of interesting when you look at this art collection of the frogs here at the moment right now. So we think there's a huge opportunity to come in and like actually level up the quality of art in this marketplace, so you can see that level of pixel art here. And again, Bitcoin Frogs is not only dependent on their pixel art. I think what's a lot more interesting, of course, for what these guys are doing is the fact that they've built and have been early to the ecosystem, which I think they deserve a lot of credit for. But again, we think there's a significant opportunity to kind of level up the art. And that's what really drives us right now behind Ronin, is that we believe we could put out the best pixel art in the game. So at the moment right now, we've done a lot of cool things. So let me just share really quickly how and where Rodin is exactly on the ordinals ecosystem at the moment right now. So first is we've already started the story of Ronin by doing an inscription on Bitcoin already, which is called, here we go, which is this inscription that I just linked in the chat from ord.io, right? When you go look at this here, what's really interesting is that you'll see a tomb and this is the Tomb of Sato. This is actually what we're starting as the story. Essentially, in our story in Ronin, there's a great warrior that exists in this world, right? It's a world of ancient feudal Japan. And in doing so, what's unique is that he mirrors, right, his storytelling in regard to what the story of Satoshi Nakamoto is in real life, right? It's this actual storytelling of where this world is going to be able to scale and really tell about how the BTC as, Bitcoin as a technology was revealed and shared with the world. And it was through this great leader in Satoshi Nakamoto that we no longer know who he is, right? No one knows who he is, and he's almost like a myth than reality, right? Such a fascinating thing, right? In a market that has always known like where a creator is, or this overpraise for the creator, we see that like there's this huge opportunity behind this in this market to kind of scale and bring greater storytelling here. And in doing that, right, what we've started to realize is that we wanted to create inspiration to what Satoshi is. So this is actually the first inscription we did, and we call this as the parent inscription. Once we kind of run this process, this inscription I shared of his tomb, which is a beautifully animated piece. It's very rare to see animated works on BTC at the moment right now, especially ones that are native without utilizing Persian, because it's usually too expensive. But we decided to spend a lot of money on this inscription, especially at that time. It's a pretty large file size there as well. So, it really helps set the story. And then beyond that, what you could actually see if you go to that or.io is that if there's a parent inscription, there means there are children. And I think that's the other really interesting thing here is there's a lot of huge ways to leverage Bitcoin technology to bring storytelling to the front. And one of the ways that we're trying to do that here is really trying to make sure that we put on, again, the best art in the game. And this is actually the other big challenge here in Web3 is that how do you get people to appreciate quality of art, and how do you make sure that it stands out? We think we've done a really great job because from here, under this initial Satoshi's, tomb, there's essentially 9 children. We call these the 9 disciples. These 9 disciples actually represent each of them technically represent one page of the initial BTC light paper, right? And this number 9 is also important. There's 9 pages in the BTC paper. There's also this concept of block 9 sats. These are essentially the first Satoshis that have ever been mined by Satoshi himself, right? So it's the first block that's available. So again, that number 9 becomes really important in this story. And we continue to emphasize that, right? 9 pages, nine ordinals, all inscribed on block 9s as well. And that's kind of where our story starts getting really exciting, because it's more than just, hey, we're trying to put good art. It's like, hey, we're actually trying to push some of the boundaries here and see where we can go. And I think we have some really cool stuff. So here's like what 4 of the actual, you know, visuals look like of these disciples. And these are also fully inscribed already on the blockchain of BTC. And again, it's beautifully animated art. If you guys see here in chat that we just dropped, this is kind of what we're hoping for and building for and scaling for, is putting out incredibly quality art. So again, these are all 9 disciples that have the exact same armor, right? But they have each represent a unique color, right? And this color means that, there's going to then essentially be unique clans. So there's going to be another parent children relationship here, right, between these disciples and then the initial supply that we're planning to launch behind Ronin. And each one of these will be color coordinated, which is also really unique. You'll actually be able to tap into the storytelling and the world building here And there's going to be some really interesting ways to do dynamic clan formation on Bitcoin, which I think is such a fun thing to do. There's real provenance here, there's real history. So with these nine disciples, then we have a lot of other really big opportunities behind, right? And that means that we've started to build out the whole collection. And in the whole collection, there's a lot of really cool visuals we've tapped into. I'll share a couple of these here at the moment right now, that will give you a little bit of insight on how we're thinking about the art. And then the cool thing is some of the art is actually going to be finalized by diamond holders themselves. And this is the other unique thing that we're going to be shifting forward in 2024. We're going to allow diamonds to have a lot more control on our process, our launch strategy, and of course the value that we believe that this ecosystem can unlock with all of our characters and designs too. So, let me share with you what a few of the other characters look like. I have a couple in mind that are worth sharing. I just, of course, with my awful organization, trying to find all of these here as well. Oh man, you guys are sharing all. We gotta get you guys to share the good stuff. So Golfer just shared one of the animated versions of this. T Please has one of our basket characters. We were having quite a bit of fun on a lot of these characters as well, where we're trying to put like very different looks. But these are some of the incomplete ones. Let me show you some of the complete ones. I think that's also like super important. Is showing you what like some of the final outputs can look like. Let me grab, let's use these ones. These are perfect. And let me upload this one really quickly. Man, we have so much art. It's actually pretty hilarious. Um, Here we go. So for example, here's like a couple characters that can show you some of the visual range here at the moment. Which I think is really cool. I really actually love some of these characters. And this is just like three characters all using the same mask and showing you a few of the different colors. So if they were part of the white clan, the gold clan, the black clan here, they each will have their own names, but they'll also each have their own badges, right? Which is really cool. And this is where we think it really starts getting special because it gives us a sense of iconic elements of a lot of these designs. Like these look like characters, like especially with this mask, all of these look like characters that could have been in Mortal Kombat, right? Which I think is really cool, right? It's like a really interesting design there on this front. We're also going to push out a lot more beyond this too, but this gives you a sense of where this is going and where this design is going to be. We actually think this is, without a doubt, the best pixel art already happening on the ordinals front. And once we start adding more of these designs, it's only going to get better, right? So, like some of the other cool designs we have is we have other fun little animations. Another good animation here is, let me see if I can find like fire eyes. Let me see if I can find, yeah, like, these aren't final. These are some of the older ones. They've actually been updated a bit, but I have these ones on me, so I might as well just share them. Let me share the lion as well. Yeah, let's share all these. Why not? So, what's also cool is that we call these fire eyes, right? Which is really cool. So, this is also how we do a little bit of our animations, which is really slick. So, some of the masks are going to be fully animated, but very rare. There's not going to be many animated masks in the entire collection, meaning there's not going to be many fire eyes in the collection here as well. So, there's like some really cool stuff here, some really cool, unique designs, and the first two are kind of showing you what it would look like with both fire eyes and an animated mouth. The third one is showing you just what does it look like with just fire eyes alone. And it's just our slight little element here at the moment right now that kind of makes it a little bit different. Yeah, I love the weird wave of the dragon beard. It's hypnotic, and also like it's a mustache that can dance. It's very strange. And I think that's kind of where we're having a lot of fun with it. And again, our pixel art team is incredibly powerful, right, on what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to design. So we're excited about where this is going, but the challenge has always been is ordinals has been very rocky and choppy over time. So we've just been, keeping this in our back pocket when this would make sense to do a real launch. And now what we're starting to realize, we could build something pretty meaningful, but rather than us singularly choosing, we're actually unlocking this for diamonds. So one of the new things we're unlocking and we're testing out is that we're essentially giving a full vote to the diamond community. So currently diamonds are able to participate in a live vote that's currently happening in our Discord. The vote actually ends here this weekend, and they are currently voting on, do we launch Ronin, yes or no? If Tribe Diamonds choose yes, it means that we as a community will accelerate a mint process and a launch process on behalf of Ronin. There's still a lot of work that we need to do, but we believe that if there is a yes vote from our community, we can execute and launch Ronin within the next 4 to 6 weeks, right? Which I think is going to be exciting. It could even be sooner, but there's a couple of big things that you need to get right. First is you need a real marketing campaign, you need a real launch structure, you need a real way to distribute whitelist, and you need a real way to actually make sure that this is an asset that is worth holding long term. So this is kind of what I get really curious around in our product design, is that we want to make sure that we're meeting the ordinals market where at its peak, right? And I think we're potentially in that opportunity to do so. There's still a few major changes that will be happening in the market over the next few weeks, and we want to keep paying attention, right? Like node monkeys is going to be very, very interesting to watch out on the ordinals front. So we're going to keep a very close eye there to see, okay, where is this going to participate and potentially launch here to be able to participate in our world. So if node monkeys has a proper relationship and doesn't honestly shit the bed, right? We got to hope that they don't. I think ordinals is going to have a very interesting next couple of months, and I think there's a very good reason why we should consider Ronin being a part of it. But again, this vote is completely up to diamonds. They get to participate in it. Diamonds don't even know the current state of the vote. It is still completely blind to them. So we'll wait, and even us, we don't even know what you guys are voting. We're not checking any of those details or anything. Our goal is just to make sure that our community can start voting on these details moving forward. So again, that you can have a lot more upside in the product experience and the world that we're building. So not only will diamonds have critical votes, right? But you guys also, as soul holders and what we are building beyond soul holders, will also have your own corresponding votes for other launches as well, right? We are in process of thinking through stuff for both Reapers and Lost Realms, right? Which is really going to be a compelling way of seeing what this vision can be. And you guys will have some interesting ways to participate there. And then separately, as we kind of build out our community, we're going to also keep scaling more opportunities across our projects that that can lead to real, we don't want to call this governance or DAO voting by any means, right? It is more about like a co-collaboration between parties, right? And if we could do this co-collaboration between parties, right, like we can actually then be aligned on the outcomes. And that's what Tribe is really trying to build, right? What is our favorite thing about what Tribe is trying to do is that we're trying to make sure that we are putting community first with all of our relationships. And Tribe has been doing that successfully, right? I think what's really nice is that as we kind of get to this like long-term vision, Tribe is really hoping that everything we reflect is putting holders first, projects first, and launches first that align with each and every one of you. And we've been educating you guys for a reason, right? It's not that we're yelling at you, give you code just for fun. It's you guys should understand the markets on a lot of these fronts, right? Especially diamonds. I mean, many of the diamonds have given us the majority of our knowledge around ordinals. Shout out to a lot of the people in this community, like Bruno has been incredibly valuable. Shout out to Zetman. Shout out to anyone who's been sharing me ordinals alpha, and there's been quite a few other individuals as well. There's a lot of upside here, right? And I think that's kind of the other fun thing. So the way this works now is that diamonds are going to pretty much have consecutive votes on a lot of different fronts. I think this is what's also really interesting is that this first vote is just yes, no on launching Ronin. If it is a yes, there's going to be multiple more votes for the diamond community on some of our strategy, on some of the art, and even potentially on some right of the actual mechanics of the mint. But let me share what we do know about the mint thus far, which is still very, very, very limited, right? Ronin is not built to be a large supply. Ronin is built to be incredibly small supply, but a little bit more expansive than what we've done historically for diamond. So currently the plan is that the supply is currently designed around 400ish. It is currently 378. There may be a slight change to this, but we like this number and what we most likely will want to sustain at the moment, right? This means that again, with only 378 supply, right? This is not something we have thousands of whitelists for, right? What our goal is to build what we think is going to be one of the most important anchored communities for ordinals, because what Ronin will also serve as is the hub for all BTC allocation moving forward, right? And I think that's going to be a very important thing here in our vision. So this is kind of why, as we build this out, you guys will have the opportunity to participate. And as many of you are asking how to get whitelist, well, it's relics. It's relics are going to be the primariest way to be able to you'll unlock this, right, in our allocation kind of moving forward. So this is kind of the nice little thing is that our entire vision of GP equals GA, the primary remaining allocation that we have for Ronin will be going to the tribe community, and that will be through relics and other opportunities as well. The important thing to understand, though, is that this is not a free mint, but we are trying to do this with very much so on the low cost front of what we're seeing already happening on ordinals. We are not cash extracting here by any means. To be very honest, whatever our mint price is, it will be less than how much, like in terms of the total capital we bring in, it will probably be less than what we've already put into the project, which is totally fine, right? What are we trying to really do? We want to make sure that this is going to be one of the most valuable, ecosystems that can scale on ordinals. And we want you guys to have a very, very solid opportunity, right? And I think that's important. So, to be very transparent, and we'll share with you right now, the highest price we will ever do for Rodin is 0.021 BTC. The lowest price we will ever do for Ronin will be 0.01. That is the range that we're aiming for. And if you know anything about the ordinals market, it's incredibly, incredibly aligned with the fairness of where the market is going. But it means that it's a very different launch. Again, it is expensive to be in ordinals on a lot of these fronts. But again, this is what the market has kind of sustained. For example, Harto was 0.01, Femojis 2.0 was 0.01. There's a handful of others that are in that too. So again, our goal is not to be extractive. There were times where we're thinking even higher, and a lot of people recommending us to do higher. That's not really our goal, right? Our goal is really making sure, right, that we're scaling this ecosystem out and making sure that when you guys enter, you're entering with confidence. And when we mean by entering with confidence, here's the other amazing thing. You will see the first refund, guaranteed refund in probably in ordinals. What we're actually also going to do is that we will guarantee you a refund for X amount of time after mint for 100% of your mint price. Meaning that if you mint, there's no way you could lose in the first 21, 30 days, right? Which is really interesting, right? Our goal is actually not to extract this market. We're changing a very total different strategy for this. We want to make sure that if you come in to our market and what we're building, the idea is very simple. We want to make sure that you are coming with, at minimum, some positive upside in your relationship or alignment, right? On the asset. If you don't believe in our execution and vision, 14 days after mint, you actually have the ability to fully refund it. So it's not that you even sell for a loss. You can just literally return it to the treasury and we'll return you the money back. And that's kind of the important thing here as well, that is like incredibly, supportive here too. I think Zion's asking, um, well, Zion says, sorry, I just saw his question. I know it's block nine, but what matters more are the stats within block nine. Actually, I don't think that matters at all, the stats within block nine. The idea is like, don't get me wrong, there's rare stats as well and uncommon sats. This is not what we're doing. Those are not a part of this. We can do that, but it means that we will massively have to, increase the cost of the mint, and that's not what we think is valuable here at the moment right now, right? These are all early block nine vintage sats. That's all these are. We're not putting a large emphasis on this. This isn't about inscription number either. Like, I'll actually be very honest. I think inscription numbers is one of the dumbest fucking things ever. I know why there's collector value around it, but it's actually one of the dumbest things to happen to ordinals. Because if you go look at like sub 1K art, it's so depressing, right? Because it was about speed to market, right? Which is really sucks, right? Is that it was more about who could just put out anything into the market, but it really wasn't about what creates the best value in the market. Don't get me wrong, I fucking want a BTC shroom like no other, right? Like, I am a huge fan of it. But the truth is that this overvalue of early inscriptions is actually one of the reasons I think the ordinals market was held back quite a bit. And that's why I'm way more interested, right? Like, on seeing, okay, what is the differentiation we can actually make, right? That is more about, not about were you there early enough? Because here's a reason why I also don't think inscription numbers matter as much to me. And this is my personal like vision on a as a collector, is that really if you were inscription 1 versus inscription 10 million, the delta in actual real time between those is like 3 months, 4 months, something like that. It's like, or like less than 6 months, right? I don't really care about that, in my opinion. In the long term of provenance and history, I think that delta of time matters a lot less than what I think, the market is currently valuing it today. But don't get me wrong, if I could always update and do anything different, of course we would have inscribed early. It's the meta that is clearly evolved on ordinals. So you can't fade it, right? But there's also a different story in the narrative here that I think is going to be important. And this is also why, again, like between me and you guys, I'm not a big fan of Magic Eden, because Magic Eden is trying to push this narrative as well, right? They're trying to push that, hey, there's the sub 1Ks, the sub 10Ks, the sub 100K listings. I think if that's the only way that we're showcasing like provenance and history, I think ordinals becomes a lot less interesting, right? Like, and this is the other real thing that is really unique here too, is that this market is really, really, really struggling with that kind of provenance element here as well. So that's kind of the other important thing. And Zion, you're technically true, but you're also not really right. When you're looking at low inscription numbers, that's actually not driving the largest market caps on ordinals at the moment right now. nor are really rare sats. Like, that's the other interesting thing. The two leading collections are Block 9 sats or nothing even relevant around the sats for, say, Bitcoin frogs, right? And that's the other interesting thing is that the market is actually too narrow in its thinking. The users who care about low inscription numbers and rare sats are very minor. And you could even look at like rare sat collections like Seize Control that have struggled to actually sustain their floor price as well. And the volume and trade activity of low inscriptions is so minuscule that it actually doesn't matter if you want to build long term. Don't get me wrong, if you're in ordinals early, you probably did really well. So the challenge that you actually want to build is what's your compelling narrative? What is your way of designing for this market? And the truth is, the biggest market caps that actually matter have nothing to do with rare sats, nor do they have really anything to do with low inscriptions now as well, which is really fascinating. If the market is now diverging from that, and you almost want to let go of a lot of the old school thinking on what ordinals value should be. And I think that's kind of the very unique thing that you're going to see long term. And this is kind of like the challenge, right? Like you're going to see these kind of low inscription elements here is going to be like still a long term sale. But like, Narbosh notes like market decides and he shows these like really low inscriptions that have very large sales. Those will always happen, but there's no market around those long term that are sustainable. There's not a builder opportunity there. Those are actually the wrong outliers for those that are trying to build sustainable projects, which I think is actually going to be the real interesting thing here as well. Right. And it's also hilarious when you look at a lot of those sub 100, sub 1000 inscriptions, like that badger that sold for 10 BTC. It is literally the eighth ordinal inscription. It's very below average art. It's very uninteresting. There's nothing beyond it outside of the early inscription, which matters a ton to a lot of collectors, which is really cool. There's a collector base there. But the real collector base that you want to go after are the ones that are going to be more growth oriented and community oriented. And those are all going to be large supplies that aren't really going to be tied to early inscriptions. And that's actually like the very interesting thing. The closest thing that I see of early inscriptions holding like real value is Bitcoin shrooms, BTC shrooms, only because they have the only original art and fairly large collection to be inscribed sub 1000. Well, everything is sub 1000 except two of their pieces, which I think are like 1024 and 1000 like 50, something like really right outside that gate. So that's actually really impressive. And I think that's actually why I'm excited, right, of where this market is going to be. But again, we want to break. And if I'm an ordinal maxi, holy shit, do I want to break the low inscription narrative? Because the low inscription narrative is the most gatekeeper thing out there, and it's prioritizing the wrong thing. It's prioritizing just early time, not early value creation. And I'm much more interested in the value creation side here as well. So lots of cool things, and I want you guys to be able to take this because ordinals is going to have lots of different opinions, right? I disagree with tons of the top ordinal people, but I also massively agree with others, right? I'm a big fan of guys like the team behind OMB, like ZK Shark and a handful of other people. But at the same time, right, I think a lot of people are overthinking the low inscription and the hyper tech talk at the moment right now. I really want to see where this ends up scaling and sustaining. And this is really where I do look to projects like OMB, Bitcoin Frogs. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen with Node Monkeys as well. There's going to be a huge opportunity on ordinals, and we hope that Tribe will be able to participate in that here with Ronin as Ronin has a few other tricks up its sleeves, but we won't unveil that at the moment right now. There's a lot more art, there's a lot more storytelling, and there's a lot more interesting gameplay here as well. And I think that's kind of the other important thing here too, which I think is going to be really supportive. Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing with you, Zion. Zion's still trying to keep representing the low inscriptions. No one's saying that they're not going to have value, but their value actually means nothing compared to the market cap, right, of Bitcoin frogs means nothing because those aren't collections. Those aren't actually sustainable entities. Those are almost just literally collectible artifacts, right? Which is, don't get me wrong, valuable for a ton of users, but you're mistaking one-off sales for anything long-term sustainable, right? And I think that's also the other really interesting thing here in this market is I don't care about the one-off sales of low inscriptions. I care about the market cap or the value of trade and exchange. No, it's not about conceding. You have great points there, Zion. I appreciate it as well. No one's disagreeing with you, right? It's that they will continue to have value, but as builders, we actually don't care, right? As builders, the problem about low inscriptions, it's not something that is ever replicable again. And that's actually the reason why it's bad for ordinals, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, if that continues to be the only narrative. The good thing is, tons of people don't have that narrative either, right? But this is also the challenge of ordinals. Ordinals has such different, unique ways of valuing the ecosystem, so it drastically changes between person to person, which I think is also really interesting. So, as we think through this, right, this is also the reason why I want to be also a part of our process, because that's the other different thing about Tribe. We're trying to get you guys to be included in our process pre-launch, right? And that means more than just white labels, right? What we're actually doing here is we're having you actually play a really interesting opportunity and vision here as well. So, I think that's a really important thing. I think rocket scientist is using the wrong language. Diamonds don't control the floor, right? You don't want to think of those language. I think it's the wrong language by rocket scientists, so I would ignore that. But I think it's really about the understanding of, right, we have a large influence of how we curate the assets, right? That's how you want to think about Ronin. That's the other major advantage. Who we curate this to is going to be really important, right, to this kind of like challenge here as well, right? And I think this is kind of why, another opportunity for Ronin is strong is that we bring an anchored community over to Ordinals. The fun thing about diamond users is they've been getting a lot more interested in ordinals moving forward. And I think that's going to be really important because we all want exposure on this chain, right? To absolutely here, right? Like that's going to be really important too. Yeah, Torch, what we said is on mint price, it will be between 0.01 and 0.021. So very, very on the low end of what we're seeing BTC mints are at the moment right now. So our goal again is, fully aligning with you guys and being transparent, but we'll finalize those numbers and let you know exactly how things are going right now for this kind of structure. Guys, yeah, we've already said the supply is 378. It is very small supply here at the moment. There is a chance that we would consider expanding the supply for diamonds to vote on, but I don't even think that will even make it to the right vote. So like our big challenge here is more about how do we bring the right 378 people along the way, and we'll also of course have treasury supply on that as well, because as we mentioned, Tribe is taking in less money than what it's cost us to build and inscribe and buy the collection, and that's okay because what we're betting on is the long term, right? We really want to make sure that this ecosystem is going to be sustainable and scalable as well. So, as we kind of step back, right, what I want you guys to really have a lot more of an understanding of is why you want to have some opportunity within the world of ordinals. If you can do that, you're going to be able to be really successful because you could start essentially, right, getting a lot more opportunity to what blockchain tech has to offer. There's going to be a lot of upsides, a lot of builders, a lot of visuals here as well. And I think like, as we scale this out, I hope that you guys can be a part of this conversation. Where you can see us launch from start to finish, right? That's what I also want you to be able to be incredibly close to. because we should all be learning from this experience, right? And because of that, right, like I hope that you're gonna have a lot of fun, seeing the entire process. So I want you guys to kind of have a fun little opportunity here right now, to kind of participate in just like a fun little vote internally for the company. So I'm gonna drop this in our chat here at the moment right now. And it's just, should we launch Ronin after what you've heard? Should we move into a launch process? Yes or no? So I'm gonna drop this here at the moment into our channel, of War Room, and you can vote here really quickly. And you only have a little bit of time. Oh, it looks like you guys chatted between the two different vote options, but you can now vote for either one of these here at the moment right now. So again, you could vote option one, which is yes, or vote option two, which is no. I'm going to delete your messages real quick between the two options, but you have to find it in the chat. We just dropped the vote in the chat. And oh, the interaction failed. Oh, you've murdered our poor little bot. Not sure why, but it might be because here, let me do this. Give me just a second. Let me try. Maybe it doesn't work in this room. Um, Let me see if I can do it in another room. Give me a second. This is the fun thing. We get to chat. We get to try this stuff out. Let's see. Vote. Should we launch Ronin? Duration 3 minutes. Oh no, wait. Oh, we thought you would be a part of this. All right. I'll have to do the vote later. So we'll make you guys be part of the vote tomorrow. Let's do then our other favorite thing. Let's head to the secret chamber, people. As we go to the wonderful secret chamber, we will give you a new code. In this new code, you could get a new relic. Your relic gives you freedom and more whitelist. The role here today is Wen Ronin. The code is 1208. The code is 1208. Make sure you know how to use the secret chamber. It is a room here in the engage and earn category. If you do forward right slash secret, you're able to unlock this function and get it here in the next few seconds. I don't even enter them anymore. Should hopefully be able to get your relic here as well. All right, everyone. We are having quite a bit of fun here as well. Lots more action and activity going. Real quick, the big thing to note is starting tomorrow, we're going to start unlocking auctions and prizes for all of you guys in our community. So you're gonna have some options to bid on stuff from our treasury. There's also gonna be some like really weird, unique auctions that will have like interesting prizes. We'll even have a couple of tournaments here as well, which should be really fun. You'll have poker tournaments. You'll also have like interesting stuff to bid on. People have been requesting. You get to play Saint in a FIFA match if you want to win that, and if you win that, you get some major prize if you beat me. And if you don't beat me, I get to make fun of you in our chat for the next like 3 months. So it depends on if you want to play that game. We're gonna have some poker. We're gonna have a few oath spots. We're gonna have a few Ronin spots are gonna start coming here as well. And then separately, there's a few of you guys who've been requesting like a little bit of support. So some people want like one-to-one chats with me. I'm gonna add that in. We're gonna add all this kind of stuff in here as well, so that we'll kind of unlock a lot of cool opportunities for you guys. So really cool stuff happening. I think the big insight here as well is that as we step back, we want to really recognize that this overall market is still struggling to understand the future of where Web3 is going. What we want to really, in this vision, understand this market is just trying to chase the next major gen wealth, with grapes kind of being rocky at this point, and you're going to want to watch the price post TGE here. we didn't get the expected liquidity coming down to a lot of the other collections, at least what I would have thought. I do want to go look into that a little bit more, but I want to say like this might be one of, I don't want to say it's a crack yet, like in the entire ecosystem, but this is probably the first time that I would say that I'm starting to see that this might not sustain as long as many people hope, right? And again, with Overworld, dealing now with this blur problem, they're now running into the same challenge and strategy here where their floor prices now just dropped like 15-20%. So, it will be interesting on how the rest of the market sees these signals. They don't look at, at the exact opportunity here as well. So because of this, it's a major, major challenge, right? There's not lots of good solutions. I mean, a rocket scientist, you keep just saying Jeremy's going to fix it. You can't fix that, just to let you know, right? It is actually a massive issue. You cannot block blur after the fact on the contract, at least not that I understand, or sorry, block Seaport. I don't know if they could redeploy an update to be able to do that accordingly. So I think the only solution he has effectively is that he either has to, you know, I don't think they can block Seaport anymore, right? Um, oh, you're right. They just don't have an alternative market. You are right, ICO Beast. Yeah, there's not a good solution here. He's exactly right. So let's just talk about this for a couple of minutes for any of those who are still interested to understand about Overworld, right? What is the challenge here? Is that in order for him to make this work, he has to block all of Seaport, which means that he has to block anything that is supported by Seaport, which is OpenSea and Blur at the moment right now. So you would lose all marketplaces at the moment right now. So that can't be the solution to in order to block Blur, right? Because of that, the other important thing to understand here as well, right, is that because of that, the only solution he has is that he'll have to manually probably verbalize to the market that, hey, I'm going to block the rewards and royalty upside for anyone who buys on Blur. But guess what? That problem's already created now, right? Which is, I think, the actual challenge here is that you now have a massive comms issue because now all these people who are going to buy on Blur didn't know that. They just thought they're getting something cheaper. So it's a huge, huge problem that people don't really realize that it's not going to be an easy singular solution. Someone is going to get upset and someone is going to FUD. But this is exactly like the issue of projects like, of what Blur's willing to do and what players are trying to do. I think the other interesting thing is he probably needs to wait till Magic Eden. I think that's actually what his saving grace is Magic Eden's marketplace launch. But it's wrong timing. This is actually like a really long problem, just to be very transparent, right? Is that like this is the thing that you're gonna recognize here is that this is showing you way more cracks all happening on the same day. TGE of grapes not going as well as we and Overworld, right? The next TGE getting hit on their floor price because Blur's now become a vector of attack. Those are two really bearish signs right now. It doesn't mean the market's going away, but it doesn't mean that this market's going to continue to roar forward. Be ready. Be okay, right? Be recognizing that this market isn't actually genuinely ready to sustain, right? And again, here's another good example. Everyone was posting out that, oh, Grapes had $80 million worth of buy pressure on their raffle. That was not $80 million of buy pressure that would correlate to the token. That was 80 million of buy pressure for people who knew that this was the most no-brainer thing to go get and used a bunch of wallets to essentially add in a bunch of 0.05 ETH plays because it was a 100x unlock. Those are not users that were actual true buy pressure on the token. And I think that also clearly is setting up great for failure because people assume there'd be more buy pressure. And right now, what we're looking at here at the moment right now is that they're massively struggling, right? It looks like you guys are saying Grapes is Are you saying grapes are at 0.08 now? Is this the real price you're telling me? I'm seeing at 0.11 at the moment right now, but I'm also looking at a garbage token. I'm trying to make sure. It's always annoying to find the right token. Um, very interesting. Oh shit! It is 0.081 a coup. Oh my god. Oh my god, that is crazy. So this is rough. This is dude, guys. Like I'm gonna be very honest. This is super bad, dude. I'm not saying it's the end by any means, but fuck, let's like I hope this is the reality check that this sure as hell isn't a bull market, right? Like I want you guys to realize it's definitely a bull rally, right? But this is like a very interesting thing is does Grapecoin have any more catalysts here? And where is this actually going to go? Thanks, Free, for sharing the Dex tools here on this point. Very interesting, very unique to see how this plays out. Currently, Grape on the Dex chart here is 0.1029. Again, again, if you're holding Grapes I hope that was still profitable. I'm curious to see what the overall math looks like. But damn, only a $22 million tradable market cap and a 222 million fully diluted market cap. That's really disappointing for grapes. Don't get me wrong, I'd fucking take that for any other project. Like that's how dumb Web3 is. I just want to let you guys know. These guys straight up just did a token launch, and on day one, right, of their listing, they're gone up 6x or like 700%. You know how insane that is to say out loud in any other market? Like that would be one of the greatest successes ever for a public listing, right? But for token listings and the way this meta works, we're like, oh, it's not that great. Wow, now they're sinking. Oh my god, my 10x is gone. Now we only have 4x. What the fuck? You got a 4x in 6 months? Congratulations, you're the greatest investor known to man, right? And I think that's also the other interesting thing. Free says at least people got 25% of their token, paid 5 to 6x. So people are free riding 75% of their allo. I agree. But I think that's exactly now the challenge as this goes down. What's going to happen? They're just going to continue to liquidate right on every unlock, which is going to be the scary thing. I really do hope Grapes has more plan. I think Grapes really misran this process completely from start to finish. Sorry, from start to finish of the token. It's really surprising. I don't know why they didn't have better guidance. I don't know why they made certain decisions. I'm not sure why this was delayed to this level as well. It's also weird how fast this happened, right? It's almost like we weren't really ready for the PGE to happen today. So this is kind of the other challenge here is that you have to make sure you're building correctly for the market. I think the good thing here is Jeremy's a good counter to this. Jeremy is like going full degen, right? Like Jeremy is very, very direct, right? He is playing to build the optimal market cap play right now. So it will be interesting to see how he navigates it. But this vector of attack from Blur is a little tough. It just means that it slows down the advantages that he has. I'm curious though how he reacts. I hope he doesn't ban or remove people who are buying on that front. Rather, I think you'll have to create it where it's a multiplier. Like if you've been buying on OpenSea with royalties, you'll be able to get a royalty chest. Right? I think that's what he will need to be able to do here as well. Right? Is a way where users have a little bit more control so that they don't feel burned. Because the problem is then he almost needs to give them an opportunity to go pay their royalty, right? Like, hey guys, if you go pay your royalty, unblock this. But again, it's a whole nother product flow that he was not expecting, right? At the moment right now. And I think this is a challenge. Rocket Science says there's been no overworld sales in the last 2 hours other than wheat, right? Ugh, that's not good, right? Oh shit, that's never good. Let me just look at that as well and just look at the last sale. So I should just see all I'm seeing a lot of non-wheat sales in the last 2 hours. Um I'm not seeing any wheat sales to be honest, on mine, but it is definitely lower volume. Again, this is where
to be very honest, if I'm Jeremy, he should come out with an even more bullish statement that ignores this, right? I'm very curious. Ah, you're right, rocket scientist. I see it here on OpenSea as well. So it's very unique to see what people are doing here at the moment because, again, this market shows you just how quick anything can change, how everything can go away in a moment's notice. Again, this market is still paper thin on a lot of fronts, right? Like, I think this is going to be a really important thing here as well. Yeah, I think only people expected, I don't want to say larger volume, don't get me wrong. I think people just expected not a dip in floor, right? And that's not about Encarta, right? It's more about the blur issue. So that's the problem is people now won't understand why this is dumping if they're an external holder. That's what we're more talking about ICOBs. And that is a huge trouble, right? Because you're right, almost everyone who's internally in is marching towards TGE, right? But I think a lot of the people on the external side, right, is important. Oh, I think you're totally wrong. The only thing you care about is external, right? Like in this market, like the only thing you actually want here at this moment is the external buy pressure because again, this thing needs to march up way higher to be able to get to that multi-billion FTV, right? Which I think is actually really, really important for what Jeremy's trying to do. Like I was just talking to Jeremy earlier, his number one focus is bringing new money in, right? That's his big, big focus here at the moment right now. And he does need more buy pressure to come from external people who are not holding at the moment, right? He's already gotten most of the internal buy pressure, played out, which has been the earlier announcements here as well. So now this is going to be a challenge, right? Of how is he going to be able to keep the narrative going without needing to massively deploy or change new positions. And the question is now going to be is does this undercutting continue to happen in Blur because of this listing structure? It could absolutely be a major challenge for it now. So I think people who are not like worried are probably being too naive at this point. But it's again just a signal to be watching. And that's what all of you guys should be doing is identifying the signals to be watching here to see if they sustain. And it's going to be very interesting to see how a lot of these founders are going to react in the trenches on these details. So there's still going to be a lot more opportunities. You're going to see a lot of people try to still push TGEs out. It is going to be very, very red ocean very quickly, right? Like that's going to be the other important thing is that there's just going to be a lot of people struggling in this market because they're going to try racing the TGEs and they're not going to be prepared. So I'm right now still just focused on people that have a TGE set. And Overworld's going to still be the best outcome amongst the group without a doubt, right? But the key, right, is like the delta on his floor price, right, is essentially going to be, or the impact of his floor price is going to have in a very direct correlation to what the FDV of the token is going to be, right? So Jeremy's biggest challenge is that how does he march this up to 4 ETH or 5 ETH by TGE and ensure that there's limited sell-offs? And his biggest advantage right now is he has incredibly low listings. He has incredible alignment with what the TGE will offer. I think of any asset that can have conviction on TGE, it is right now Overworld. But remember, Overworld is operating with that assumption. If this market starts getting more bearish, people may start taking liquidity sooner. And again, like a Grapes TGE is identifying that maybe a little bit of confidence is shaken if that is not going to be the right optimal play. Because I'd argue, I'm very curious if you bought in at Grapes at 3 ETH, what does your profit look like at the moment right now based off floor price decaying and how much you got on liquidity as well? Again, that's probably like an unfair. Those are clearly probably going to be short-term losers. But the reason why you want to understand that is that that is going to be the risk fear index that people are going to deal with as they go into future TGEs, including Overworld as well. So I think this whole market is actually going to be in very choppy territory and choppy waters. but it could easily be resolved with a lot more positive things coming, right? And this is going to be like a challenge. Yeah, Zion, I don't disagree. He says so many new narratives came into the market so fast. We honestly need to let a little steam off. Absolutely. But remember, the biggest challenge is that although we brought a bunch of new narratives in, we didn't bring enough new wallets in, right? There's not enough new dry powder or opportunities in this market. And I think that also leads to one of the reasons why this is such a fickle and you could almost say a key tipping point is that it could go either way really quickly, right? And that's the scary thing, right? If you look at the fundamentals, this market is outperforming significantly than what the fundamentals are noting. So in those kind of cases, the question is going to beg is how well can it sustain it? Well, it's there's only so much, hits you could take to this armor, right? Before this market just decides to fully cool off again. And that's what a lot of the smart money is believing. There's going to be another massive cool off here as well, right? In this kind of challenge here too, right? And this is kind of the other, really unique thing here that's going to play out. Silent mode says there's one more angle to this question. Holding bunches and grapes makes a big difference in terms of airdrop. I double my airdrop amount as a holder just because of these bunches. It is also one of the reasons why the prices of grapes came down so fast. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the staking game ended, right? So essentially, when the yield comes, people are going to take liquidity against it. My question to you, Silent Mode, is was it more profitable for you to hold until TE, or was it better for you to sell at like peak euphoria of, say, 4 ETH? I'm just curious if you had to do it again, what would that delta look like here as well for you? I assume anyone who minted was probably or early holders was more profitable to hold the TGE even at this current price. Yeah, it looks like Wild West Crypto says mine was way more profitable to hold the TGE. Good to know. And that's like the important thing here because that's the narrative we want to make sure, right? Is holding the TGE was profitable, right? But yeah, like I think that's kind of the important thing. Yeah, don't be wrong, everyone profit. The question is what was more profitable? Because that's actually the thing that you want to understand. As soon as the market realizes that it is profitable to sell before TGE, right? Then you know this meta is coming to an end, right? So if these major TGEs where it's like, ah, fuck, I should have sold, right? It will lead that the primary decisions for a lot of these holders is to sell, right? And that's the important thing that like Grapes needs to come out with a narrative to protect this market. Like Grapes should come out with a narrative right now. It's if you held one grape from mint to now, this is what your return would have looked like. If you held five grapes in a bunch, this is what your return would have looked like through airdrop. And I think that's also like a very important thing, right? Is like our challenge is going to be are these entities going to really help the market realize TGE is the real game? Because that's good if more builders and more collectors believe TGE is the actual opportunity, like there is going to be a lot more there's going to be a lot more conviction to play these TGE games, right? We know we have Overworld, we know we have Wallet Wars, and then there's like 10 other projects that believe they might launch in January. Keep that list close to you. See if any of those will become opportunities later for entry. And this is kind of where an or exit, right? And I think that's also a really important thing here is knowing like where this is going and where this market is developing. You always want to make sure you know what are the token generating events that are about to happen because that will absolutely play a very large influence on the future ones too. So the good thing is the market still has protection from Overworld. Sucks to see that Overworld's dealing with this blur problem. Doesn't look like there's an easy, clear solution for this blur problem. So it may just be an annoying thorn in the side, which sucks. It looks like the Magic Eden market late January is what the last data is, and that doesn't really work well for Overworld. So it looks like Overworld's in this hard position. It looks like they're going to have to live with Blur doing what they're doing, right? And then separately find a way to create incentives to not buy on Blur and more importantly, not list on, right? And I think that's also like a very important thing. You know, one thing I would actually do, this would be really bold. I'm thinking about this. I might even just send this idea to Jeremy. I would just blacklist wallets that sell on on Blur and say like those wallets won't be able to participate in any of our ecosystem. And yes, people could transfer and stuff like that to other clean wallets to sell on Blur, but again, like they're gonna lose a lot of the advantages of selling there. Again, they might trade that for the 5% royalty here, but this is also the real challenge with 721C now, and I'm very curious to see how Gabe's gonna respond. Right, like with Gabe, what I think is also going to be interesting here too is, until we see a marketplace that's willing to work with him, this solution of block all marketplaces doesn't work for 99% of startups. No, honestly, 100% of startups, right? So I don't think that is going to be the long term solution. So I'm curious if he'll have a counter hack to this, but it doesn't look like it because he's saying that you have to block these guys. That's the only way it's going to work. So that's a huge challenge. So you know what this actually really showcases here? Like, holy cow, the biggest opportunity in this market is for Magic Eden to come out, accelerate their launch, and be like, fuck Blur, fuck all those people. We're the only marketplace you should approve. Block everyone else. This is actually Magic Eden's opportunity at the moment right now. I'd be very, very curious to see if Magic Eden takes advantage of this, but you're going to see this all play out in real time. But guys, I'm gonna let you, think, let you kind of evaluate and see where this market is, right, and see where the challenge is. Yeah, I see Obisa saying the way to solve it incentivize paying royalties. Of course, right? We said that at the start, right? Give incentives for users that who are paying royalties to get bonuses here, right? But you still run into an issue for all those who bought on Blur that haven't played royalties. So you will have to find a way to allow them to pay royalties in the future. It's a new flow. We've already discussed that, right? The challenge really is kind of understanding then, okay, how do you design that very side and measurable returns, right? And this is like the actual interesting thing about this market. Very few people are actually trying to understand how to solve that. And I think that's the other element that kind of becomes the larger issue here is that how do you communicate that to the larger broader community that is more trader oriented versus being on Twitter for your comms or Discord on your comms. It just creates a very interesting, friction point here as well. But yeah, we'll see what kind of Jeremy ends up creating as a solutions. I think there's a lot of fun ways, but no one's figured it out. Let's see how it plays out. So, guys, with that, I'm going to let you all go. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully, we'll chat soon. Bye bye now.